Hey guys, Josh here with another screenplay. Now, I feel really bad I haven't done these as regularly as I wanted to, especially considering I outlined every single one I'm doing in August of 2013. So the fact that I haven't gotten through all of them yet, I feel really bad about that. So I do apologize to people that have come to this channel just for the screenplays. I know there's a few of you there that have been asking every once in a while, hey, when are you going to do next screenplay? So yeah, I thought, New Year's is coming up, obviously. As I'm recording this, it's December 29th. And yeah, I thought, hey, it'd be pretty nice thing, like, for in anticipation of New Year's, if I just released a screenplay, because I'm going to finish this up definitely in 2015. Hopefully within the realm of January, February 2015. Because I think there's only like 7 or 8 left. But anyways, I don't want to talk too much because obviously this is going to be kind of a long one because I basically wrote this like I was writing a graphic novel. Like, granted, I still highly recommend you guys check out my other screenplays, especially my Superman screenplays, like Superman, Less Than a Krypton, Superman, Metropolis, because obviously this is a sequel / finale to my Superman ones. Also recommend you check out my Green Lantern ones. Those seem to be fan favorites. Batman Dark Detective was probably the darkest one I ever wrote. People seem to like how brutal that one was, and obviously my Justice League ones people seem to really like, especially the first Justice League one, where I have like the Flash's origin and all that stuff. But I think that's enough introduction for now. As I always say, the image on the screen won't change. This is a much more audio experience than a visual experience. I just want you to listen to what I'm saying, listen to the story I'm telling you, close your eyes, imagine it. If you're on your computer, open up a new tab, just as long as you're listening to it, that's all I really care about. And please stay all the way to the end. The ending, the finale of this is I put the most work into, I'd say. I think it's pretty nice. I think it came out very well. And I'm going to try adding music to it, too, if possible. You really help with the mood and tone. So without further ado, because this will probably be around 20-ish minutes, just being realistic here with how much I wrote. It's like 6 pages of story. Yeah, let's begin. So this takes place 3 years after Superman Metropolis, which was the second Superman screenplay I wrote. Now, Lois Lane is getting ready to cover a live story for the Daily Planet News. Basically, think like CNN, kind of, where they, obviously there's the online web news format. They also have their own channel. Then there's also, the newspaper. But the newspaper isn't as big. Like, basically, for Daily Planet, at this moment in time, I imagine it being kind of a cross between CNN and New York Times. Like, that's just how big the Daily Planet is. But anyways, she's covering a live story for DPN with regards to tensions in the Middle East between the nations of Kadak and Bialya. The Kadak dictator, Azam Muhannad, threatened to send his army into Bialya if their leader, Ruman Havjafti, does not take his troops out of what's called the Sacred Lands, which is a land that overlaps between their borders, which is supposedly the burial place of Teth Adam, whom they both worship. Now, by the way, the names and locations, minus the Sacred Lands, is actually from the comics. I just made up the whole Sacred Lands thing. Clark, though, he's in his apartment on the phone with Lois, wishing her luck on, the report and everything, because obviously he's very proud of her. They've been dating for a few years. It's kind of like that, spousal support kind of thing, significant other support thing. Especially because Lois is basically the face of Daily Planet News. Like, think Anderson Cooper to CNN kind of thing. Like, that's how big she is there. Like, Clark is a reporter too, but he's not the face of the company. Lois and Clark finish their conversation, and we get to see Lois, getting ready for the broadcast. She has like 3-4 military personnel around her for protection. She also has a ballistic vest on under her coat, and she has her camera crew, who similarly are dressed appropriately for the situation, because obviously this is a somewhat kind of hostile environment and they need to take precaution. So Clark's sitting on his couch waiting for DPN to come on after a commercial break with a very proud look on his face, and the commercial ends and we can see Lois, and all is going very well. Lois is talking about the situation, background information on it, the current status of it as far as everybody else is concerned, and like I said before, everything's going well until a bomb is dropped nearby, like a bombing occurs nearby, which is the product of Kadak's Air Force attacking Bialya. Now, Instantaneously, Clark is gone from his apartment and over Kadak/Bialya airspace using his telescopic vision and super hearing to locate and save several families caught in the bombing. Because obviously his first priority is, helping all the endangered people that are, endangered as a result of this bombing. Also in the process, he transports Lois and her crew to the United States Embassy where they'll be safe. Superman, after this, showcasing a great, amount of speed, grabs both dictators from where they were and brings them to the bombing site, showing them what they've caused. And Superman tells them, I'm not going to fight your armies, that's not what I'm here for, but I do want you to be aware of what your fighting is going to do, which is destroy homes, kill families, etc. Superman also reminds them that they both worship Teth Adam, thus maybe instead of fighting over these sacred lands, they should discuss sharing it out of respect and reverence. So Superman at this point returns them and then heads on his way back to Metropolis, where he gets a phone call from Lois. At this point, we cut to Lex Luthor in his lab with Anthony Ivo and Tio Morrow, which, if you remember from my last screenplay, those scientists/engineers work for Lex Luthor, kind of like under the table, kind of classified projects, not really public projects. And they're telling Lex that Project Salvation and Doomsday need controlled testing before they can give a proper conclusion. Now, the scientists, they're listing various reasons why, to defend what they just said, and Lex cuts them off. Lex reminds them that they don't need control testing, that, they're already done. Like, these projects are done. Like, maybe they may need some tweaks after, being testing, but for the most part, a conclusion can be given. Like Lex reminds them that he didn't bring them here to work on stuff because they're smarter than him or because he needs them. He brought them to work for him because, as far as he's concerned, they're merely tools that Lex can carry out his work with, because sadly he can't do multiple things at the same time. Basically Lex Luthor kind of being like, yeah, I'm better than you, I don't need you, you're just here to be a pawn in my game. But Lex, he reaffirms his stance before that, they don't need testing, and actually, more than anything else, Project Salvation's done. He says that considering what just occurred here in the Middle East today, this is, by the way, around nighttime now, Lex says that this is the final straw for him, as whether people want to see it or not, Superman has officially intervened in foreign government affairs. Lex considers this the first stepping stone to a terrible outcome in the future that only he, obviously as Lex Luthor, can stop. So while this is being stated, he tells Ivo and Morrow their sole focus now is getting Project Doomsday ready, while he personally tests out Project Salvation in the upcoming future. The next day after this, Clark and Lois are at the Daily Planet, with Lois writing a new story titled Peace in Middle East Thanks to Superman. Now Clark states that, while his goal when he went over there was not to cause peace, he's happy he left a positive effect, because obviously that's better than, everyone just being bombed and dead. He then asks Lois out to lunch out in Paris, and Lois accepts, because, like I said before, they're already dating, and Lois knows he's Superman, so they could do couple stuff like this, especially going from Metropolis to France for lunch. Before Perry interjects that Lois better have her story ready for the evening broadcast tonight, before she does anything else. At this moment, Jimmy also shows up, telling Lois that he's looked at the footage that her camera crew got, and he was able to pick out certain things for the broadcast. He just needs her to approve them beforehand. Well, also he tells Clark that he has data for the ongoing story Clark's writing on increased seismic activity in Metropolis over the past few months. So Clark and Lois, they thank Jimmy before departing for lunch, and while eating lunch, Clark tells Lois he's getting concerned about the amount of dangerous assignments / stories that she's accepting. She makes a joke about it, saying that, he loves saving her from danger and all that stuff, like damsel in distress kind of thing. But Clark keeps a very serious tone, Lois notices this and asks why he's so worried all of a sudden. To which he replies that he's worried because, there's going to be a day, one day, or something might happen where he won't be able to save her, and that's his biggest fear. Lois kind of laughs at the notion, the notion of Superman being killed or something like that. Before reminding him that their 45-minute break is almost over because they're already 30 minutes in. So they finish up eating in Paris, and then Clark flies them back over to Metropolis, to the Daily Planet building. Now, on top of the building, before they go back in, Lois is about to go in until Clark stops her. And when Lois is turned around, Clark is on his knees with a ring. Now, Lois obviously says yes to Clark's proposal. They're engaged now. It's all happy. But the ring that Clark gives her is very special because it's made of kryptonium metal. And the crystal in particular has the House of L symbol on it. And it can do something which is illuminate in the dark. So Clark says basically, when he's not around, if he's like saving the day, whatever have you, something would ever happen to him, she can still keep him close. You know, like, I guess it's supposed to be sentimental because, you know, it's kryptonium metal. The crystal has the House of L symbol on it. So it's just something really nice. Basically kind of like they keep the hope alive kind of thing. You know, like when he's not there, it's dark out, something like that. The ring can light up. The crystal can light up and, you know, illuminate, you know, give hope. That kind of thing. You know, it's something very corny-ish that Superman would totally do. Especially, you know, in a Superman movie or comic, if they're not too afraid to, you know, embrace the character and hope, all this stuff. But Lois, like I said before, obviously says yes, and when they tell everybody down below in the offices, there's a mini celebration. It's all very much fun. Later that night, Lex Luthor is seen working in his lab before finishing up, he's kind of covered in sweat, grease, that kind of stuff. He's been working, and he calls Anthony Ivo in. Anthony Ivo brings Lex a kryptonite power core, kind of not altered, but a much more improved version than the kryptonite core Metallo had in the last film. So Lex receives this kryptonite core, putting it inside this shrouded object we haven't seen yet, that he was working on, and then he goes into a computer, initiating a launch sequence before disappearing from sight, while we hear him say, "It's time to give my congratulations." From here we go to Superman flying around Metropolis. This is now nighttime, talking with Batman about his engagement. During the conversation, Superman asks Batman to be his best man, which Batman accepts. Also, while congratulating Clark and Lois, but you know, he does bring up the prospect of Superman retiring now, because you know, when he is with Lois, you know, he's her husband. You know, if they want a family somehow with kids and all that stuff, the possibility of high-level threats attacking Lois, especially, is kind of high, especially if his identity is ever found out in the future. Superman, however, tells Batman that Lois insists that, you know, he doesn't stop helping others. You know, she sees that as being selfish, you know, when Superman does so much good for the world. To which Batman replies something, but, you know, randomly his voice kind of becomes static before the connection's completely lost. Superman has no idea what's going on. He looks at the earpiece he was talking into, which isn't like Bluetooth. It's much more sophisticated technology that looks like Bluetooth, in case you're wondering about, you know, the whole thing. He looks at it in curiosity before hearing an object speeding towards him at, you know, high speeds. You know, turning towards the object, you know, he thinks maybe it's like a plane or a jet or something that, you know, is just really close by. But turning towards the object, he's able to brace himself enough for an energy blast of kryptonite-based energy that sends him falling down into a construction site below. Now, this unknown attacker also descends before him, and as Superman looks at it, a forest green and black bulky humanoid kind of being. Think basically a cross between the Iron Man suit and the Ironmonger suit from Iron Man 1. Like a kind of like a healthy blend of both, you know, both size and appearance. So Superman looks at it, and you know, he's trying to use his X-ray vision to see inside, but it has a lead lining, so he can't. Superman asks who the attacker is, but gets no response, and the attacker launches several rockets at Superman, which Superman dodges. And he flies towards the attacker with a punch. Now, the punch barely dents the armor. The armor is obviously very strong, before Superman's actually electrocuted from his contact with the armor. The attacker then speaks, "Hello, Clark," which stuns Superman, as, you know, he and Batman literally just talked about this certain thing happening, so obviously he's a little worried right now. And then the attacker reveals his face via turning the helmet he has on transparent, which reveals Lex Luthor. So basically this is Lex Luthor's war suit. In Project Salvation, I would never say this in the movie, but the reason why I call it Project Salvation is because Lex sees himself as the proper savior of the world, especially Metropolis. So by giving him this suit that could allow him to hurt Superman, possibly kill Superman. he sees himself as the salvation of Metropolis. That makes sense. Being typically egotistical as Lex Luthor is, of course he would name it something like that. So Lex reveals that ever since the invasion of Vildrock's Apocalypse, Darkseid, etc., since Superman's appearance, at least public appearance, Lex Luthor's become more and more certain that Superman is the biggest threat to humanity. Lex reveals how he bought the Daily Planet, which he actually did do in the end of the first Superman one I wrote, or the second one. And basically he bought the Daily Planet, not, to censor news and everything. He says he doesn't really care about that. He makes too much money to really worry about it. But he did that to keep an eye on Superman, because finding out Superman's identity was as easy as tracking the unusual electromagnetic energy readings his body radiates, as he's not human, he's alien, he's Kryptonian. Lex then lifts a large steel bar from the construction site, smacking Superman into a building before flying over to where Superman crashes at. Now, over here, Superman, he kind of gloats some more, saying, while exposing the kryptonite core greatly hurting Superman. Lex gloats about how he chose the nighttime to attack Superman because he knows there's not a lot of sun around for him to absorb, which, will make him at his weakest state easier to defeat, while at the same time letting Superman know that he studied his biology and is responsible for creating kryptonite with the purpose of hurting him. Anyways, Lex closes the core while stomping Superman through the floor. Superman then releases a very intense blast of heat vision, which incinerates a good chunk of the building, but Lex's suit is still standing, except for it's now falling because there's no platform he's standing on whatsoever because it's all burnt. Lex is trying to get his propulsion systems going, but Superman catches him in the air before he can, while saying he talks too much before throwing him into the ground. He throws him into the ground with enough force where he's kind of stuck. So kind of like you see in cartoons, you kind of see the outline of their body and they're like in the earth. It's kind of like that, except for he's not in the earth, he's just kind of stuck. In the process, Superman is able to damage the suit enough where he is able to use his X-ray vision more, and he notices that something's wrong with the kryptonite core. The core is actually poisoning Lex, like something purposely in the core is trying to poison Lex. Superman tries telling Lex about this, but Lex uses the opportunity instead to hit Superman with another energy blast. Superman from this point flies away as fast as he can, before flying back at supersonic speeds into Lex's suit, giving him enough force to rip the core out, which obviously causes him great pain. Superman never having held this much kryptonite before, ever, he's really pushing himself here before he grabs a piece of of Lex Luthor's war suit that, kind of got ripped off, and he puts it over the kryptonite, luckily because it's lead, like I said before, lead lining. He's able to do that, so it kind of makes a container for the kryptonite before Superman throws it into space. Now, Superman's very, very weak at this point, and Lex Luthor ejects from his suit with a kryptonite gun, ready to finish off weak Superman, which he does. He shoots Superman in the chest, effectively killing, quote-unquote, Superman. From this point, Lex's suit begins, showing a message from Tio Maro and Anthony Ivo. The scientists they start off saying, "We don't like you, Lex, and we want you dead. Like, we tried killing you with the core, sadly it didn't work, but at least you killed Superman. Because now we can release Project Doomsday, and without Superman, essentially no one's going to be able to stop it. You're going to be dead." Because basically Project Doomsday was obviously made in the same vein of Project Salvation. Project Doomsday was made to defeat / neutralize a rogue Superman. Lex, realizing that he's kind of screwed at this point, Superman was potentially the only being that could stop Doomsday. He tries sending a broadcast to the Justice League to potentially stop them, but sadly the jammer that he used earlier to jam the connection that Superman and Batman had is still active, and Anthony Ivo and Tio Maro are keeping it up. So, you can't reach anyone. So basically, Project Doomsday can succeed to its maximum capacity. Lex, tries telling them not to do this, but before, he can really say anything to them, they kind of shrug it off and end the message. Lex then thinks to himself, before Project Doomsday can really be released, he thinks to himself, remembering that Kryptonian biology, although similar on a surface level to human biology, is actually much different on a cellular level. Thus, they operate differently. So he takes the bullet out of Superman before putting Superman into his suit. Now, activating the backup power supply his suit has, Lex puts all the power into the propulsion system, with his plan being to send Superman up into the upper atmosphere, because although he appears truly dead, he's really more of like in a coma, kind of like a low-powered state your computer goes into, like sleep mode, something like that, when it needs more energy, which is something that is unique to Kryptonians. That's a nod to the healing coma, by the way, if you didn't notice. But anyways, Lex is trying to send Superman up into the atmosphere high enough that he'll be exposed to a lot of solar radiation, so he could, get out of this kind of coma, so to speak, and he can, heal and come back and help stop Project Doomsday. So as this is happening, an earthquake occurs, and in front of the LexCorp building, seemingly digging itself from underground, we see a 10-foot tall, grayish brute with like bone-like spikes protruding out of its body. And it appears, like I said, seemingly from below Earth, immediately causing destruction, destroying buildings. It destroys a football stadium. Streets are destroyed. It's insane. It's a massive rampage. And it's doing this thing with no mercy whatsoever. At the Daily Planet building, Lois, Perry, and Jimmy see this, and Lois and Jimmy go out there to cover the story, the developing story, because they have no idea what's going on. But, they're assuming, maybe there's some sort of explosion or, earthquake, whatever have you. And while Jimmy kind of questions the safety of this, Lois, shrugs off that worry, saying, Superman will make sure they're okay, being very, obviously, optimistic about Superman. So they go to downtown Metropolis, where they go live, and Lois describes what's taking place in downtown Metropolis when they spot Doomsday. Now at the same time, Doomsday spots them, especially noticing that the ring she has on has a House of L crystal on it, which just drives him insane. Doomsday immediately comes towards their direction, obviously, causing a lot of destruction down the way, and Jimmy and Lois try driving away from Doomsday, but their car is caught by Doomsday, where, he basically, with like kind of one hand, rips the hood off of the car, but from the way he does it, which is more near the top of the car, he at the same time kind of crushes Jimmy in the process, killing Jimmy, obviously. At this moment, Lois screams for Clark, which awakens Clark in space as he'd been bathing in solar rays, and he immediately flies down, grabbing Doomsday, hurling him through a few buildings. Now Superman at this point is still not 100%, he's still recovering from, what happened, with Lex and all that stuff, but he takes Lois to the Fortress of Solitude for the first time ever, telling her that he'll call her when it's all over, and that she needs to stay here for her safety. Superman then flies off to Lex, asking how to stop Doomsday, who's since has continued his rampage. Now, at the same time, Doomsday has been kind of moaning the word Superman in a weird, deranged voice, like Superman, like some like kind of zombie-ish way. Like, it's just really creepy. Anyways, Lex states that Project Doomsday is supposed to have a controlling device that they should be able to use to stop him, as he was made from harvesting and experimenting on Kryptonian DNA to make the ultimate being to stop Superman if Superman would ever go rogue. Now, obviously, Superman is not all that happy about this, especially because it's illegal experimentation on alien DNA. But, putting that aside right now, he gives Lex Luthor a close-range communication device before dropping him off at his lab. Also, after this, Superman is saving millions of families in Metropolis, moving them out of the city to more of like the suburbs and all that stuff to make sure they're safe. Because, like, Superman's already, figuring out there's already a lot of destruction. This shit's about to hit the fan, kind of thing. So anyways, at Lex Luthor's lab, Lex sees the dead body of Tio Morrow, while Anthony Ivo is starting to bleed out. Like, he's in kind of a critical state. Lex starts searching for the control device, while in downtown Metropolis, Superman and Doomsday are having a brutal fight. Lois is able to see it because with the Fortress of Solitude's technology, she's able to hack security cameras and all that stuff, and also hack a secret Batman satellite that has a camera on it. So she's able to use that kind of technology that the Fortress of Solitude has to see the fight, and obviously she's shocked. That this is insane. The fight is so powerful that each hit registers kind of like as an earthquake, like a small earthquake, like a tremor, and it creates shockwaves, shattering glass, around, where they're, hitting each other at. It's ridiculously powerful. This would be a really brutal fight to see, and also a really cool fight to see. So Lex finds the device, finally activating it, and momentarily Doomsday stops moving, falling to its knees. But a second later gets back up before grabbing Superman and throwing him into the ground before, beginning another brutal barrage of, punches. Lex, is confused why this didn't work, to which Anthony responds that, Lex knows why it didn't work. Doomsday has Amazo enhancements from Anthony Ivo, which allow him to adapt to anything that keeps him from completing his task, which is killing Superman. Thus, when Doomsday, the control thing was activated, essentially shutting Doomsday down, Doomsday's body adapted to it so he can continue to kill Superman, as that's his only goal. Superman, he's able to get out of kind of Doomsday's grasp using a massive amount of heat vision, and he actually uses such a powerful blast of it on Doomsday afterwards that he burns the whole surrounding area, and Doomsday's skin and flesh are kind of burnt off to a degree, with while Doomsday is still healing at the same time. And it's Doomsday is basically this unstoppable machine. They could really do something with that in a film. Superman takes a second to ask Lex why it didn't work. Lex explains what happened, saying the only way Doomsday can really be killed is by throwing him into the sun, as nothing else can destroy his highly regenerative cells. So Superman braces himself as he flies with Doomsday, who's healing, like I said before, from the heat vision towards the sun. Now, around this time, Lois is able to find a teleporter from the Fortress of Solitude back to Metropolis, which, she sees that Metropolis is basically unrecognizable at this point. There's so much destruction, like the rebuilding effort is going to be insane. And, near the upper atmosphere into space, Superman is seen flying with Doomsday to the sun, but Doomsday is able to break Superman's grip, starting to punch Superman while, they're flying up. Superman's able to give Doomsday at least one last punch while in space to propel him into the sun indefinitely, while Doomsday is able to also connect one last hit, knocking out Superman while he falls back down to Earth. Now, while falling, Superman's able to aim himself at least for the kind of barren destruction in Metropolis, so he doesn't at least hurt more people, or like property damage, all that stuff, while he gets to see Doomsday burn up in the sun. Now, while Doomsday, with Doomsday destroyed now, Superman's finally at peace, and he closes his eyes, seeing a series of flashbacks throughout his life. We see Ma Kent, Pa Kent, his first time as Superman, meeting Lois, meeting Jimmy, first day at the Daily Planet, the Justice League, etc. And, those kind of flashbacks end with him remembering his proposal to Lois, which brings a tear down his face as he quietly says, "I love you." From Lois's point of view, we now see Superman crashing down like a crashing down like a comet, producing a massive crater down below. Lois obviously runs to it, and eventually she's able to reach Superman's body, which is insanely bloodied, cut, bruised, and it's kind of like that classic scene from the Death of Superman. The flag is, stuck on that protruding out pole and all that stuff. And she's able to hear on Superman's earpiece, Lex asking, "Are you there, Superman? Like, Superman, are you there?" To which Lois takes it and says, "He's dead. Superman's dead." Before, obviously she's bawling in tears right now. We get to see Lex kind of just fall to the ground, really just thinking to himself, like, that just really happened. Before the screen cuts to black, with Lois holding Superman, as the only thing keeping the screen kind of illuminated is the crystal, before that soon fades out also. So that's it. Hope you guys liked it, first off. Sorry it's a bit long. I know it's like around 30-ish minutes. I originally wasn't going to do the Death Superman for a Superman one. Originally, this was going to work out with the villain being Parasite, and also Superman was going to fight Lex Luthor in the war suit, and I was going to end it off with Doomsday being like awakened, kind of, and Doomsday was going to fight the Justice League. But I felt that the Death of Superman is such a personal Superman story, it can't be a Justice League story. It's just one of those things where I felt to do Superman versus Doomsday right, it has to be a Superman movie, not a Justice League movie. So it can really focus on that. Because also at the same time, I feel like a reason why Death Superman is so powerful is because, Clark is the symbol for hope. And it was really just him versus Doomsday and giving it his all to stop Doomsday. But at the same time, there's so much more at stake here. He just got engaged to Lois. That has a lot of emotional weight to it. And, but anyways, that's it. I hope you guys liked it. See you guys later with my next screenplay. I'm not going to say what it is, but I hope you guys will stay tuned for it and like it when it gets to it. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. If you don't like us on Twitter or Facebook, or follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, please do so. That's great. And I'll see you guys later.